Screen Slurps.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss everything that is good, that is bad, and that is savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Herlocker.
And we have been having some crazy nightmares, and I can't even begin to describe what they have been. Actually, let me start. Laura,
Are you really you have been having weird dreams lately. Are you going to start explaining those? Because I don't know if we should do that on the podcast.
If I can even remember all of the details of what they were.
You have the weirdest dreams. So we'll just leave it at that, maybe.
I think I had one semi-related to the movie that we just watched this past week. It had to do with some crazy contraption, like a Ferris wheel or something that fell over and crushed, I think, someone I knew. But
oh my God, you're having like Final Destination nightmares.
Yeah, talk about a nightmare alley. Am I right, everybody? Am I right? This week's film, Nightmare Alley, directed by Guillermo Del Toro, and it just came out last year. But Laura, have you been having any nightmares?
No, unlike you, I can never remember I'm sure I do, but I can never remember my dreams/nightmares when I wake up. They're like gone. I got to practice on like lucid dreaming or lucid sleeping, whatever it's called, so I can try to remember them.
Yeah, lucid dreaming.
Yeah. You, on the other hand, like you always remember them every morning when we wake up. You're like, let me tell you about my dream.
Let me tell you about my dream.
And me, on the other hand, I'm like, I know there was something going on, but as soon as I open my eyes, it's gone.
Well, let me tell you, I must be like a mentalist or something.
Ooh,
you know?
Maybe you should have a show and con people out of their money.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't want to relate too much to this film already, but we'll get into the details as we progress into our description of what's going on here. But before we get into that, let us tell you about our side slurps, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Step right up. Come one and all to our side slurps, the Laura and Adam side slurps of the week. If this is your first time listening, ladies and gentlemen, our side slurps are the things we've done other than watching the main film of the week. Our side slurps are things like watching other TV shows, other movies. Maybe we did start a carnival and we started luring people in for shenanigans like this. Yeah, who knows?
No.
But
I mean, who knows with us? But I distracted him.
Who truly knows the kind of crazy things the two of us do? I don't even fully grasp it sometimes. But Laura, please tell me some of the crazy things you've done this past week that maybe I'm fully unaware of.
Firstly, I think we should talk about something very important, which we've been talking about all day, and that is the weddings of season 2, Love is Blind.
I was going to say that.
Well, good. We can do it together.
We're on the same page.
We can do it together. So we just watched the weddings last night. I'm not sure if the episode was released last night or yesterday. I think so. But spoilers coming ahead, everyone. I'm just so surprised. We've already talked about this ourselves, but still, about who got married and who didn't.
We had horrible predictions on this because, well, at least I did, because I was predicting that, and again, spoilers, but the people that decided to get married, I thought they were not going to get married. And the people that did not get married, I thought they were going to get married. So yeah,
I mean, like Danielle and Nick, they ended up getting married. I was for sure that Nick was going to say no. Like I mean, that's the point of the show too, right? Like, I'm sure the producers skew it and like make it seem really, it's going to go one way, but then actually it's the other. So they were a big surprise. And then like, I'm just so happy that Deep D said no to Shake, because he is, I can't even have the words for that man. He is a narcissist, and
he seemed like a total jerk in the beginning when they were in the pods to everyone he spoke with.
She's so much better than him. Like, he did not deserve her. So I'm glad she realized like her own self-worth, right? And was like, I choose me. And I was so happy. Like, that part just made me really happy.
He seemed like he was sort of having a partial redemption period after they connected, after they got engaged. He seemed a little bit like he was kind of coming around. And then after they had been together enough for a few episodes, I started to see, as a viewer, it was just coming full circle back to the beginning of him not knowing what he wanted. He wasn't all the way there. And I think also from the beginning when he made the comment that he wasn't connecting with her on a physical level, that he was saying, oh yeah, mentally, like, we're best friends and I'm getting along with her great, but I just don't want to do anything else with her. And
which, I mean, it is a legitimate reason to not be with someone.
Absolutely.
Like, totally legit. It's just kind of the way he, like, said it and expressed his feelings. And I don't know, just the way he went about it didn't sit well.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I don't even want to talk about the whole Shayna, Natalie situation, because I cannot stand Shane or Shayna. So I guess I'll only say I'm glad Natalie said no and walked away. And I loved, like, that little bit with her dad. And he was just, the relationships with dads get me very emotional. So I was happy.
You were just crying the whole time you were watching.
I just love weddings. Weddings make me cry. I mean, I've said this to you. I don't know what I'm going to do at our wedding next year. Like, I'm going to be a blubbering mess. We're going to have to I'm going to have to do something.
We're just going to get paint for your makeup. We're just going to go to the hardware store and buy paint. I need, like, tattoo.
You can get eyeliner tattooed.
I don't think we want to go that far.
No. I don't trust anyone that close to my eyes with needles. But I'm just saying it is a thing you can do.
We don't need that.
Anywho, what other couples can we rehash on? Sal and Mallory. Like, I'm glad Sal said no and they didn't go through with it, but I didn't think they would either. And then, Jarrett and Ayanna. Is that her name?
Yeah.
They actually got married. And I was surprised on that one.
Yeah, they seemed like they were coming together. My
only issue is it seems like Jarrett just wants to be married, and it seemed like he didn't really care to who. Like, you know, and so I feel bad for Ayanna, but I don't know their relationship, right? Like, I'm on the outside looking at a very skewed TV show, so I can't really have an opinion. But yeah, so most of them live in Chicago, right? Which is where Adam and I are. Can you imagine, Adam, if we run into them now that we've, like, seen them?
That would be interesting.
If we're out, like tomorrow, if we're out getting breakfast and we just see them, I wouldn't know what to do.
Shane and Shayna.
Oh, them, I would just walk away. I'd talk smack about them. Yeah. So that was my long little discussion on Love is Blind. Other than that, I've been watching New Girl still, really enjoying that. It's a lot of fun. And also still playing Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm almost done, so I'm hoping I can get that finished and then maybe buy Forbidden West, the second game. So maybe I'll get into that. And we watched a really interesting documentary, right? Is that also on your list?
No, it's not.
Okay. So Adam and I watched a documentary. It was on HBO, and it's all about, like, the Beanie Baby madness that happened.
Beanie Mania, I believe.
That happened in the 90s. It's just crazy. And it's funny, too, because, like, I grew up with that. So I kind of told you, Adam, a little bit. My mom, actually, she wasn't a collector, but she was, like, a seller. She realized she could make money off of this. So she would buy tons of Beanie Babies. And then we would go to these, like, giant trade shows and she would resell them. So that was, like, such a big part of my life growing up. So watching this documentary was just so interesting, seeing, like, how much bigger it even was than I remember it being.
The Beanie Babies were like their own stock market.
Yeah. Which one is your favorite Beanie Baby?
There are a good amount of Beanie Babies. It's really hard to decide which I feel
like
baby.
I always loved the little, like, Siamese cat. I think it shared my birthday. I think we had the same birthday. Maybe that's why I love cats. It's all because of the Beanie Babies.
The little Siamese cat. I have to take a look at all of the different ones that are out there again and try and remember which ones would be my favorite. But as I was watching that documentary, I saw a handful that I know that I own back at home, like the little blue snake that coils up and
it's like multicolored, right?
It was blue and
like
it kind of greenish on the bottom a little bit, like a lime green kind of yellowy kind of look.
And then there's like the frog.
Yeah, I don't remember the frog so much, but we probably owned that. By we, I mean my parents probably bought me it. Right. And there were some other ones too. The bat, I know I had the bat.
Oh, I remember the bat. He was cute.
Yeah, and I like the bat. I had a real affinity for stuffed animals growing up. That's why I had so many Beanie Babies as a child, and I still like stuffed animals. So I know I know that Laura knows that I like stuffed animals, and so anytime I get a stuffed animal, I just enjoy having it around. I love.
We don't have that many. Like,
yeah.
We don't have that many though. I guess I need to start buying you.
No, you don't need to get me a bunch of stuffed animals. It's just nice to see the little stuffed animal around, or the little even action
Well, you've got
figures
one
and
on
things
your
like
desk
that.
right now.
I do. The one I have right now is of Koro Sensei from
Assassination Classroom.
Yeah, Assassination Classroom.
He's very cute.
But it's just the idea of having the little companion around, like an action figure, a stuffed animal, things like that.
Yeah.
I like having little things like that.
No, I agree. I do too. The only last thing I'll talk about is my book that I read this last week. So I read A Good Man is Hard to Find, which is a collection of short stories by Flannery O'Connor. She is a woman author, a female author from, back in the 1900s. She's older. Well, she's not alive anymore, I don't think. So she just really wrote about the South, a lot about the South. She's really popular because she's there weren't a whole lot of well-known women authors during that time. But personally, I think her writing's a bit problematic. It seems a little racist, So I didn't enjoy it as much as I was kind of hoping to once I got into it. But that was my classic of the month that I read. And yeah, I think that's everything. I think that's all my side slurps. What about you, Adam?
You had quite a few for this
I'm
past
trying.
week.
I was I got some things to talk about.
Packing it in. Packing it in. I kept it pretty basic this past week. And Laura, you really filled us up with the Love is Blind information.
That's the biggest thing.
It was really a mind bender for me to see the couples from Chicago, and mind you that they weren't couples until they came into the show and went in blind for the show, not being able to see anyone in these pods, and just have discussions with them to try and figure out, do I try and propose to this random person that I've been talking to of the opposite sex and see if I want to marry them, which is a very interesting concept for a show. I don't think it's the first time that a show has tried to do something like that, but there was what was that one show, Married at First Sight? Mm-hmm.
We watched a few episodes of that, right? And it was kind of similar.
They weren't blind, though.
No, but they were matched up with someone through a matchmaker.
Sure.
So they didn't really know the person before they got married.
Yeah. But it's interesting, and I think with a show like this, it's very interesting to think back after seeing the finale that it all starts off with Nick Lachey and his wife saying, they're saying, let's find out if love is truly blind. And then you watch the finale and think, wow, did that really work? Is that really proving your standards then?
Yeah.
So,
there's one happy couple. Well, two, right? There's two from the first season, though.
Well, okay, so two from the first season and two then from this season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the reunion episode and if they're still together and if things are going well.
But all things considered, too, even if they didn't get married, a bunch of people still met. They still made a connection of some sort.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't get married, a lot of the people were still talking afterwards and saying things like, I still want to be friends with you, or would you still be interested in communicating with one another? And at the same time, there were those that were saying, I don't want to go anywhere with this. So
Shane was a little butthurt.
Yeah. Same with, not that Deeps was upset. Deeps was not upset at all, but the Shake was just all right. I'm relieved.
Yeah, he was trying to play it off so he didn't look like an asshole, but he made himself look even more like an asshole.
Yeah, because he's saying, "Great, I didn't have to say it."
He wasn't even left the altar yet, and he was like, "This is a celebration."
Yeah,
come on, man. Anywho,
he was trying to make it not awkward, but made it more awkward.
Yeah.
So just wanted to bring that up about Love is Blind. That's been a big thing for me this past week as well as Laura. What I've also been doing is playing the brand new game Elden Ring, just came out. And wow, is that fantastic. I'm a huge fan of the Dark Souls series, and the same developers from Software developed the game Elden Ring. It's out on PS5, it's out on the PC, and I believe it's out on the Xbox as well.
Yeah, cross-platform.
I believe so. Don't quote me on that, everybody. But Elden Ring is available for sure on the PS5 and the PC. Definitely check out Elden Ring. It is a fantastic game. It is so much fun. I'm hardly even into the game that far. I think it's just an expansion of Dark Souls, essentially. No relation to the storyline, but the gameplay style, the format, it's just a much more expansive style of the gameplay, and it is so much fun. I just love it. I can't continue to say how much the game is so fun. And really, that's just the biggest thing I've been up to. I'm really trying to work myself into diving more and more into book reading. I have been notorious at not reading books, and now that I have the application on my phone, Goodreads, that Laura has made me download onto my phone, I gotta put the blame on somebody. It's really getting me into reading more, and it's kind of a force onto me that, hey man, you got to read more of those pages. So, and also I want to read more. So I'm really trying to read more books. I'm trying to finish the one I started about podcasting by Eric Nussum. I've said about 2 weeks ago that I would finish the book. I am a horrible man that I have not yet.
You have other things going on. Don't stress yourself about not finishing.
Those chapters are about 40 pages each.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
You'll get there.
And that's what I've been up to.
Yeah.
That is what I've been up to.
I think, Adam, before we go on to the episode, though, tomorrow, from when we're recording, are the Academy Awards. Should we put in our predictions? I think it would be fun. And then we can come back next week and see if we were right or not.
Sounds good.
Okay, so first one then. Best Picture. Nominees are Nightmare Alley, Don't Look Up, Dune, Drive My Car, Belfast, Licorice Pizza, The Power of the Dog, West Side Story, King Richard, and Coda. Now, you and I have not watched probably half of these.
Yeah.
So giving an actual really good prediction might be hard. But I think, based on my feelings and what I've seen, I think, honestly, I'm going to go with Licorice Pizza by Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah, it's one of the few that we've actually watched so far.
Yeah, that's the problem. We haven't seen that many. But still, I feel like it's something like that the Academy would love.
I can agree with that. Yeah. And if not Licorice Pizza, I'm not sure where I'd go from there. The only other one I could kind of lean towards in terms of something to love for Best Picture, maybe Coda.
Yeah. Or maybe The Power of the Dog.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like usually some years it seems like there's a really clear-cut winner. But this year there's like a few possibilities, honestly.
Yeah.
It could go multiple ways.
Very uncertain on that.
All right. So for Best Actor in a Leading Role, we have Javier Bardem in Being the Ricardos, Benedict Cumberbatch in The Power of the Dog, Andrew Garfield in Tick, Tick, Boom, Will Smith for King Richard, and then Denzel Washington for A Tragedy of Macbeth.
It's tough because they're all really good performances. They always make it tough.
Honestly, maybe Andrew Garfield. Like, Tick, Tick, Boom was really good. And he played it really well. But it's a musical. I feel like musicals don't do very well usually at the awards.
Yeah, it's tough.
Maybe Denzel then. I'll go with Denzel Washington.
His performance was very good in Tragedy of Macbeth.
Yeah. All right, we'll lock that in.
It's just tough.
I know. And I didn't give you any warning about this, so you couldn't prepare. All right, last one we'll do is Actress in a Leading Role. All right. We've got Jessica Chastain in The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Olivia Coleman in The Lost Daughter, Penelope Cruz in Parallel Mothers, Nicole Kidman for Being the Ricardos, and Kristen Stewart for Spencer. In this category, I'm feeling very strongly about Olivia Coleman. She's a favorite. Like, people love her. She's won before, right? I just feel like she's my best bet.
I go with Nicole Kidman because she's a beautiful blonde and she has wonderful acting talent.
Well, she's not blonde. Well, sometimes she is. She's a redhead. She's
a ready blonde.
I don't know though. Kristen Stewart might get it, honestly, because Spencer is the like biopic on Princess Diana.
Kristen Stewart
from Twilight. Kristen Stewart.
Oh.
But I think she did really good in Spencer. Like, it's supposed to be, I don't know, it's on my list. Anywho, sidetrack over. Ladies and gents, let's talk about the actual movie we reviewed this week.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, aliens of all sizes. This week's film is Nightmare Alley. That's right, Nightmare Alley, directed by Guillermo Del Toro, released on December 17th, 2021. It just came out last year. The screenplay was written by Guillermo Del Toro and also Kim Morgan, based upon Nightmare Alley by William Lindsay Gresham, a classic novel, is it not? I've never read it.
No, I haven't. I put it on my list today, though. I added it to my Goodreads. So
yeah, I should check it out because before that, well, first came the novel, then came the 1947 film, and now we've got Nightmare Alley, the 2021 film. So
yeah,
I mean,
think
it just keeps going.
Guillermo Del Toro, I think he's stated, though, he's like, my movie is not a remake of the 1947 movie. My movie is an adaptation of the book.
Yes.
So I think he's trying to clear statement, right?
Yeah.
He's not doing a remake of an older film. He's doing a re-adaptation of a book.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And I'm sure you can see the differences when you watch the 1947 film. You watch Guillermo del Toro's film. They are two different things.
Yeah, I saw a few articles talking about the differences, but I didn't want to get into them too much because I think I want to watch, the 1947 one and kind of form my own opinion first. But maybe that would be something interesting for us to talk about once we actually watch the older one.
Yeah. I was reading a few things about the 1947 film, and you can kind of see how this film would vary quite a bit from the 1947 film. But we'll talk about that. This film, Nightmare Alley by Guillermo del Toro, or I should say directed by Guillermo del Toro, stars Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, Toni Collette, Willem Dafoe, Richard Jenkins, Rooney Mara, Ron Perlman, Mary Steenburgen, David Stratham, and many, many more. With a budget,
great cast.
It has a wonderful, wonderful cast. Guillermo del Toro always casts pretty great. Looking back at the classic film Crimson Peak.
Classic. It's not that
classic, old. The great classic.
That's Tom Hiddleston, right?
I know. It's wonderful casting, No, but this does have a great cast, and you can never leave Ron Perlman out.
I mean, Ron Perlman, Willem Dafoe, those are staple, good actors.
And would they not be in a film about carnies? Come on.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe has the face for it.
Well, he's always been a carny.
He's like an alien. I love him, though. I love him so much.
He wasn't the one in the jar, though.
No, he just owned the creepy baby jar.
But we digress. This film had a budget of $60 million and a box office at approximately $35.7 million. This is exactly the point I was trying to make in our last episode, where Soryavanchi had a budget of 100 something crore and box office twice as much. So
this movie was half.
Yeah, it halved.
But does the box office take into account? I don't think it would, right? The fact that, like, because you and I watched it on HBO, like, does it take that revenue into account, or is it literally only like a legit box office, like seeing it in theaters?
I think it's taking into account the theatrical box office.
Okay, so not HBO.
No.
So, because I think that skews it, which is what I was trying to argue last time too, right? With Suryavanshi, that like COVID and just everything is like totally skewed box office numbers now. I don't think they really matter anymore.
Yeah, that's the tough thing with COVID-19. No one was going to theaters, and also the fact that a lot of people just with streaming services, I think, don't want to go out anymore, regardless of the coronavirus. They're just wanting to sit inside, and hey, you've got digital access to movies. Why make it a thing to get in my car and drive to a movie theater when I could just order the movie online and sit in my house? To which I would argue there is a much better feeling of going into a movie theater and sitting there with popcorn in hand and watching it on a gigantic screen with the premium feeling of knowing that you're supporting the people that worked on that movie and enjoying it right then and there, and then walking out of the theater hopefully mind blown from the experience. It is just fantastic knowing that you made that effort, you got there, you saw the movie, and you walk out thinking, wow, that was a great movie.
Yeah.
Rather than sitting in your home thinking, yeah, guess I'll spend the $2 to rent that movie, and then you pay money and you're sitting there, and then the movie starts, and then you got dogs barking in the background, and your mom keeps talking, and someone's calling your cell phone, and you keep looking down at your Tinder account or something. Like, let it go, man. Go into a movie theater, put that all away, everybody shut up, and just pay attention to the theater. That's my argument.
I agree with you, though. I love going to the movies. That's why, I mean, you and I even go to the movies to see old movies, like not even things that are new, right? Like we went and saw The Conversation. I almost said The Conversationalist again, which is what I always say. We just went and saw The Conversation in theaters, right? Like you and I will go back to even watch things that have been out for decades.
That's a great feeling, like classic movies being shown in movie theaters, which is wonderful about the Music Box Theater in Chicago, being able to show classic movies on 35 millimeter or what is it, 70 millimeter.
Yeah. Even new films they do like on 35 mil, right? Or even, for example, for Nightmare Alley, like they're doing a showing of the film in black and white, which if we can go see, I think we should still.
I fully agree. I think this movie would be incredible being seen in black and white.
It would like definitely take us back to those classic neo-noir films.
I love neo-noir films, and it's another reason to talk about Nightmare Alley.
Yeah. Back. We got lots of tangents today, Adam. We're all over the place.
Neo-noir films, let me tell you what. See? So, as we talk about Nightmare Alley, I got something to say, see?
I always do like a Jimmy Stewart voice.
He was in noir films.
Hey, yeah, he was in...
back in those classic days.
Rear Window.
You ever see Rear Window, listeners?
You want the moon? I'll get you the moon.
He was in an Alfred Hitchcock movie,
Yeah,
Lights.
Rear Window.
Oh, yeah, you are right. Okay.
Don't doubt me. He's also in Vertigo, which is the one you're thinking of, I think.
Oh, is he in Vertigo too?
Uh-huh.
Oh, Rope was the movie that I was thinking of with Jimmy Stewart as well.
I don't think I know that one.
He made it look like it was all done in one shot.
The whole movie?
Yeah, it wasn't done all in one shot, but through editing techniques, he made it look like it was all done in one shot.
Oh, wait, we just watched that.
Yeah, that's...
Okay, yeah, you and I just watched that not that long ago.
Yeah, it was on the Criterion Collection.
Okay, so we did see it. I was about to say, didn't we just watch a movie that looked like it was all done in one shot?
Yeah.
Lo and behold.
As we're getting on our tangent about Jimmy Stewart.
One. I know. Why are we talking about Jimmy Stewart? Go back. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is in fact about Nightmare Alley. We may not have talked about Nightmare Alley at all. But this episode is about Nightmare Alley.
First it's Nightmare Alley, then it's neo-noir, then it's Jimmy Stewart. Now let's tell you about Nightmare Alley again. God dang it.
Go back.
So, Nightmare Alley. Let's give you a brief summary about Nightmare Alley, okay? This is Nightmare Alley. So, in summary, Nightmare Alley.
How many times are you going to say Nightmare Alley?
Don't get me distracted again. In 1940s New York, down on his luck, Stanton Carlisle endears himself to a clairvoyant and her mentalist husband at a traveling carnival. Using newly acquired knowledge, Carlisle crafts a golden ticket to success by swindling the elite and wealthy. Hoping for a big score, he soon hatches a scheme to con a dangerous tycoon with help from a mysterious psychologist who might be his most formidable opponent yet.
Ooh.
That's pretty much the movie, honestly.
No, that's a really good description.
That summary literally just put the whole movie in a paragraph.
Yeah. I like to think of this movie as really being like two parts, and which that description kind of went through too. Like the first half, right, is him like becoming a carny and, you know, learning from the seer, right, and her husband, and kind of like getting the feel of how to be this con man, essentially. And then he escapes the carnival life, right, and goes to like Buffalo, I think is where they actually are, Buffalo, New York.
Yes.
And becomes this like famous and very astute and, you know, fancy mind reader, essentially. And yeah, and then starts conning the wealthy for their money.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. The introduction of this movie really made it look like this guy is a incredible dirtbag, because it opens with him dragging a body on the floor, putting it into the floor, and lighting the house on fire. So clearly it makes it look like this guy, Bradley Cooper, just murdered somebody and he's trying to hide the evidence. So this guy must have no real emotion. He must have some horrible past of some kind. He's got some real emotional baggage going on, and he just killed a man. We don't know who the man is necessarily, but it's got to have some kind of tie to him in some way, and he's lighting the house on fire.
I mean, for being the main character, he's definitely not a hero. Right. Which is why I think this movie is interesting, though.
But we're trying to discover that as we watch the movie. Like, what did this guy do to, as I'm trying to describe in the introduction, it's like, who is this man and why are we watching him as he just murdered someone in the introduction of the film? And then as it continues on, then we continue to see he's trying to get a job as a carny. And it's just the whole time I'm watching Bradley Cooper's character, Stanton Carlisle, it's me wanting to discover more and more. Why are you such a dirtbag? What is with your character?
I don't know. In the first half, I wouldn't say he seems so dirtbaggy, aside from the fact we saw him like bury a body. You know, otherwise, he kind of just seems like this quiet, like he doesn't drink, right? And he's just there helping out the carnies. He's like down on his luck.
Yeah, but the interest for me in watching this is wanting to learn more. Like, why is it that you don't drink? Why?
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just saying how you said like how he's a dirtbag in the beginning. I didn't get that feeling in the first half. I didn't feel like he was a dirtbag, you know, because he was like disgusted by Willem Dafoe's character and the idea of like the geek. And he seemed really sweet with Rooney Mara's character. And he was just very quiet and like wanting to help out the seer and her husband, you know, and kind of be like their little assistant. Like he definitely seemed like he was trying to better himself. But I didn't necessarily get dirtbag vibes from him until the second half, like when he went to Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, it's all nice that he's doing things like that, or, you know, he's working at the carnival and he begins to learn from the psychic, and as he calls him, his teacher, the psychic's, was it her father or?
I think it's her husband.
Her husband. Yeah. He's teaching Stanton Carlisle how to do mentalist tricks and things like that through wordplay. And after a while, after he starts to pick up on all of that enough so to do it himself, upon doing my research, I did realize he did intentionally give him the wrong liquor.
Oh, you think so?
He did.
I don't think it's clearly stated in the movie if he intended to or not. You know, like because later on when he's having his therapy sessions, like he does blame himself for his death, but he doesn't explicitly say like, I purposely gave him that one. I don't know. I came away from it feeling like we're unsure of if he did or did not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I was reading up on it, it said that he gave him the wood alcohol.
Yeah. I mean, it's everyone's own interpretation. So, yeah, I get it. I feel like I am unsure still whether it was purposeful or not.
That's fair. But regardless, he took him out and he started his own business after that. And what an interesting way to go with that, to start his own business. I just want to go back for a second and think about how Willem Dafoe didn't even sound like himself in this movie.
Yeah. And when both of us, when he first showed up on the screen and we heard his voice, we looked at each other and we are like, that's Willem Dafoe? I mean, it looks like him. Obviously, it looks like him.
But it sounded nothing like Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, nothing like him. I mean, he had a good accent going on. That carny voice. Ladies and gents,
let me show you the geek.
Can we also talk about how we both, in that first half too, where it showed like the carnival from far away, and it looked like the Ferris wheel was spinning at like top speed. Like it was moving so quick. If you were sitting on that thing, you would be sick. It was cruising. It was zooming, as we say. And I looked at Anna and I was like, damn, is that thing moving fast?
He was hauling. You would have flown out of the chair.
In the first half, some other little things I really liked. I mean, Ron Perlman's character is great.
Bruno.
Bruno. He's just like stereotypical big protector man who like hates Bradley Cooper because he wants to protect
Rooney Mara's
character. Molly. I was trying to remember what her name was. Molly. Yeah, I don't know. It just like it makes it seem that like, yes, carnies always have these like bad vibes about them, right? The idea of it. But like it just looks like a home for like people, not that they're misfits, but people who are considered misfits by the large society, right? I just feel like it made it seem like it was such a close-knit community. And I'm, happy that people were able to find their own family through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, did Willem Dafoe have a giant mutant baby in a pickle jar?
Yeah.
Yes. Is that disturbing? Absolutely. But you know what? He found his family.
I guess so.
He found his niche. He's like, you know what? I'm going to make a geek.
Yep. That's right. I thought it was interesting, as you were saying earlier, that Bradley Cooper's character in the movie, Stanton Carlisle, asked about the first geek that they had to find and capture because he escaped and he was almost going to escape the carnival, and they had to find him and capture him. And first, Stanton Carlisle beat him up a little bit too much, and Willem Dafoe,
because he's a violent man.
Yeah, and Willem Dafoe's character was saying, "No, don't beat him like that. You're gonna kill him." And then they had to put him back in a cage, the geek back in a cage, and so Stanton Carlisle asks Willem Dafoe's character, what is it that you do to get these geeks? How do you find one? And Clem, that's Willem Dafoe's character. Clem explains that, as I found this description, he explains that he seeks out alcoholics who are often men with troubled pasts, luring them in with promises of a temporary job as a fake geek, while emphasizing that it's just temporary, then regularly gives them opium-laced alcohol. First allows the geek to fake the act, and eventually fires them, claiming that a faked act cannot draw a real crowd. And then, unable to confront withdrawal and sobriety, the geek starts actually performing the act. So, and then, of course, Bradley Cooper's character, Stan Carlisle, is just like, oh, that's awful. That poor soul.
Disgusted by the idea of it.
And I don't want to say it's funny how ironic that is when you watch this movie and see how the ending comes along, and we'll talk about that. But it's not funny. It's just like, wow, it is kind of amazing to see how the ending really turns its tail on how he reacts in that particular scene, because you see his character from that point where he's just like, man, that poor soul. And then you realize how Stanton Carlisle, Bradley Cooper's character, just develops throughout this movie. And then where he ends up in the end of the movie, you see, well, wow, how crazy this goes.
It's like really about his downfall, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So anything else from like the first part of this movie? Were there any scenes or anything in like the carny world that like really spoke to you?
I thought it was interesting when Stanton Carlisle was talking with the teacher, and it was right before he gave him the alcohol, but he kept messing with the book that was in his hand, and the teacher was trying to tell him to not keep looking at the book and continue to mess with it, because the deeper he dives into that, the less he can escape from it.
Yeah, because like the more he believes that he is able to, read minds per se or something.
Yeah, then he'll have like unturned eye or something like that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think one of the parts I like the most about the first half of the film was Stan's relationship to Xena and her husband, Peter, who was the one teaching Stanley Cooper's character about all that stuff. I don't know. I just liked the relationship between the three of them. And though it was a little weird because, I mean, she definitely gave him a hand job. But at the same time, like, it was good. It gave some intricacy to the film, I would say.
That was another thing that we forgot to bring up, as you just mentioned, the hand job. But yeah, there's definitely some frontal that you
full frontal
get to notice in this film of Bradley Cooper. If you ever had a desire for that in any other Bradley Cooper film, check out Nightmare Alley, because you'll be seeing some Bradley Cooper.
I did see an article of Bradley Cooper talking about that scene, and I guess it was also Toni Collette's first day on set when they did that scene. And so he was like, he wasn't afraid to do it, right? Like, he agreed to do it. He's like, yeah, I have no problem doing like full frontal nudity. That's fine. And he's like, but then you're like there, and it's Toni Collette's very first day, and you just show up naked.
Toni Collette's probably like, okay.
I love Toni Collette. I mean, because she's the mom in Hereditary, right? The movie that we like. She's so good in that movie. And then in this one, too, she just like, there's something about her. She's such a good actress.
Yeah, it was great how all the ties came together in this movie. All the connections. Yeah.
Do you know, though, actually, so this movie, while they were filming it, they started filming. And then because of COVID, they had to take like a long break. And then they came back to finish. And actually, most of the scenes from this first half of the movie were filmed after their break. So at the end, after they came back. So like in the first half, Rooney Mara was pregnant. She had her baby during the break. And then when they came back to film the opening of the scene, she's like, no longer pregnant. Obviously, she had her baby. And like similarly, Bradley Cooper, during the break, he used that time to like lose a lot of weight and slim down so that he looked younger and like not as polished in the first half of the film. And Guillermo Del Toro, he was talking about how like, some directors would have been really upset because they had to pause production. But he was like, but actually, like, I believe that the world gives us what we need, not necessarily what we want. And he was like, and it worked to our advantage to have that break because it is really like two separate stories, kind of. Mm-hmm. So he's like, so we were able then to look at what we'd already done for the end and then rework some things or like reimagine some things of how we wanted the beginning then to fit in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought it was interesting.
I think with the end, too, there's not a necessity in the second half of this film to have so many crazy objects used as much as they were needed for the first half when they were in the carnival so frequently. Yeah. There was so much more production design elements for the carnival, for the objects and things like that. Whereas the second half was much more interior of fancy buildings.
Yeah, I was going to say there's really not that many sets in the second half. There's like where he does his shows, him and Molly's apartment, the doctor's office, and like the rich guy's place.
Right.
That's really it.
And that's not me necessarily talking down the look of the areas, because it still looks fantastic. Cinematography looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, the production design is wonderful, but definitely with the carnivals, they really amped up the production design and the look of, like we said, Willem Dafoe's little pickled baby in a jar. Like, you got to get somebody to do some crazy craftsmanship to get stuff like that.
I think that those differences, though, helped the movie because it definitely gives it a different aesthetic, right? You know, in the beginning, he is like young and it's hectic and it's crazy. You know, it's a carnival. But then when he goes to Buffalo for the second half, he's trying to be more like polished and fancy. Like, he wants to be a wealthy man. So that's why I feel like it works then that they minimalize sets and kind of, you know, calmed things, right? Because you don't have the crazy life of like the carnival going on. I didn't even think about that until right now. But like, there's definitely a shift that happens visually too in the second half of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And what an interesting turn this film takes when Stanton Carlisle's character, Stanton Carlisle, Bradley Cooper's character that he's playing, he thinks that he's this professional. As I was saying before about if he dives too deep into that book, he's going to think, you know, he's the master of all minds. And here he is in Buffalo. He does believe he's the master of all minds. He thinks he's, you know, the greatest man of all in terms of being able to tell everyone he can, you know, read their
he thinks he
mind.
Can
he can
anyone.
trick anybody. Yeah. And that's the real turn of this movie, is that here Cate Blanchett shows up at one of his shows and tries to play him during one of his shows by not allowing Molly to take her object and do the wordplay on the object. And she tries calling him out at the show, and even still, he can predict what is in her purse, which is a small handgun with a ivory copper handle or something like that. Nickel plated handle. Yeah. So he calls her out and he tells her that that she thinks she's all powerful because she's got this little pistol in her handbag, and that's why she carries it around. And he basically is calling her out and trying to make himself feel powerful.
Embarrasses her in front of all those people. So.
Exactly.
But then they team up. Like, you know, it seems like then they start working together, and she kind of feeds him information on some of the wealthy people that she provides therapy to. And then he in turn uses that information to go to them and, you know,
classic neo-noir.
Yeah, pretend that he is this really great mind reader and take all their money.
Classic femme fatale.
From Grindle, right? The main wealthy man that he tricks. Grindle gives him like $10,000 a meeting, which in today's money, that's got to be crazy amounts of money.
Well, $10,000 a meeting today already is
but
nuts. But back then, which in their time then was like 1940s.
40s? Yeah, late 1940s. It's like the war, so.
It was basically 1948, 1941, I think, or something. It was Roosevelt time.
Well, yeah, Roosevelt was like 4 terms, so he was a long period of time.
Yeah.
But around there, yeah. So can you imagine how much money that is in today's world? It's probably like at least 100,000.
Yes, at least.
Wow. He was making bank.
Yeah.
But yeah, so him and Dr. Lilith Ritter are working together to scam all of the wealthy individuals of Buffalo, New York. And then everything falls to shit.
Yeah. Well, because he says to Dr. Lilith, he's like, I want to keep my money here in your safe so that Molly doesn't find out that I'm conning people.
Right. And he trusts the doctor. And then we learned the doctor is the bad baddie. She's a villain.
Yeah. After all is said and done, and after Stanton Carlisle says that he can help Grindle see his wife. And after
who died.
Yes. So after he agrees to help Grindle see the dead girl who he forced to have an abortion, then that all does not go well because
well, he realizes that it's Molly, like,
Yes.
and that he's been played this whole time.
yes.
So they try then to like, well, he tries to hurt Molly, and that's when
Grindle is trying to hurt Molly.
Stan loses it and like punches his nose off.
Yeah, punches his nose off and beats his like face.
And runs over the bodyguard with his car.
Yep.
Very intense.
Then he beats the windows out of his car to make it look stolen.
Yeah. And Molly's just like, I've had it, and walks away.
It just walks away.
She's like, I'm done. I'm going to go back to Bruno, my adopted father. Like, I'm out. And so that's when Stan runs to the doctor thinking, you know, I can get my money from her and like maybe we can run away together.
And then he opens the bag of money and it's all ones.
And she shoots his ear off.
Yeah.
And that's like, it was a really great scene though, because like you were saying, when they first met, right, he like belittles her in front of everyone. And he's like, you have no power. And then right when she shoots him, she has that line where she's like, am I powerful enough for you? Or like something like that, right? Like kind of throwing what he said back into his face. And you realize like, shit, she was bad the whole time.
Yeah. Like she was playing him the whole time.
And then he has to escape the police. And, you know, he like lives on a rail car, like sneaks away on a train.
Well, and to go back to Dr. Lilith, too, she recorded all their sessions. So that's how she's like, yeah, I'll play your sessions back to say you're crazy if you try to.
Right. She like
steal
protected herself, essentially. She's like, I'm not involved in this with you. You're making all this up.
Yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah. And then in the end, he ends up at a carnival once again, trying to get a job. And lo and behold, what is he offered?
Yeah, he's offered to be a temporary geek.
And it's a full circle.
It's a full circle.
You know, and he has, and his line, right, is like, I was
made for this.
Made for this, you know, like it's just the downfall of his character we see right there. He realizes.
He's sitting there basically crying, though. And he's just like, I was made for this.
Yeah. It's a great ending. I did see that was like one of the main differences between this movie and the 1947 one, right? Like the line, because in the other one, it's like, I was born for this. Is that they like changed one word? Oh, no, this movie was born. So Stanley Cooper says, I was born for this. But the 1947 version, he says, I was made for this. And they said they tried to make it seem like a little bit more end on like a lighter note, whereas Guillermo Del Toro doesn't give a fuck about that. And he's like, no, let's make this dark and sad. And it's just with Bradley Cooper, like accepting to be the geek and essentially giving his life away. Like he's not going to survive. You know, he's going to go crazy and die.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mr. I was born for it.
Yeah. So it's just nice that we saw that come back around. Like, as you were saying in the beginning, he's so disgusted by the idea of the geek and like, how can you do this to someone? And then at the end, he's like happy at the thought of being able to be that geek.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious to know he's just accepting it because he just wants an in for something. Like, just put him back in there just so he can just progress in some way to get back into doing something.
Maybe his mind is so gone that he does think it will just be temporary. You know, maybe he's like, yeah, I'll just do this for a bit to get back on my feet. And then I can go back to being like a mind reader.
Yeah, I have no idea because he came in there and he really did have the skill to mind read people. But it's one of those things where if you were in the position of the person running the carnival, then I'm sure you would also think that this is some crazy drunk man who probably is just feeding me with false information and they are probably just super drunk and I'm not going to be giving them anything more than this geek job.
And he becomes the geek. End of movie.
It was crazy. It's crazy to see that.
I think since we kind of talked through the plot, I found one article that was talking about the similarities between this movie and Crimson Peak, which I found really interesting because it's been a while. I think I need to rewatch Crimson Peak. But at the same time, like, the both movies are kind of looking at like there's this woman, so Molly in this movie, and then the blonde girl in Crimson Peak. Can't remember her
It's
name.
all about the blondes.
How, you know, like they're these innocent, naive women that are kind of swept away by these con men who have these like financial schemes, right? To like be this great man. And, you know, they're given these warnings. So in Crimson Peak, right, like she's told, beware of Crimson Peak, like stay away from it. And then the whole idea in this movie is them being like, don't do a spook show, you know, like don't believe your bullshit. And the warnings are kind of ignored. And that's like where the trouble begins. But what the difference is between this one and Crimson Peak is that Crimson Peak focuses on the woman. And in this movie, like it's flipped and we're actually looking at the man, the con man. And so though they're very similar, it's interesting that you're getting those 2 point of views between the two movies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if there's any Guillermo Del Toro film prior to Nightmare Alley that's anything similar to being a neo-noir-esque film, it's, as you're saying, Crimson Peak is probably
it's like a gothic horror, right? That's the genre of it, but pretty close. You know, like visually, I'd say also they're very similar.
Yeah, something that's got that noir-esque vibe to it. I would think the closest thing would probably be Crimson Peak.
I didn't really get to say my other fun facts. Well, I talked about the break and her being pregnant. But did you know also that Del Toro was kind of drawn to this plot because his own family was preyed upon by con artists who are claiming to be psychics back in like 1998 when his father was kidnapped in Mexico.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, when they were in Mexico, when he was in Mexico still, his father was kidnapped. And the kidnappers, I guess, like when they called him to say, we've got your dad, had said, like, beware the psychics, like they'll come for you. And literally, like Guillermo, right after that phone call, went to his mother's house and there was already two psychics sitting there. So, well, saying they were psychics. And they were like, we can feel your husband. Like, we can find him for you. And Guillermo was like, get the fuck out of my house. Isn't that crazy, though? His dad was kidnapped. You're like, what?
Yeah. And the kidnappers were saying, beware the psychics?
Yeah, they were like, beware the psychics.
Were the psychics also related to the kidnappers?
No, I don't think so. They were just con men thinking they could prey on, you know, Guillermo del Toro's mom and get money.
Oh.
Because they knew his dad had been kidnapped.
God.
Isn't that crazy?
That is very crazy.
I thought that was like a good fun fact. I didn't look. Hopefully his dad was found.
I hope so too.
I didn't look at that. Another fun fact, Leonardo DiCaprio was originally supposed to play Stanton. Sorry, not Stanley, Stanton.
Stanley Yelnats.
I know, we were talking about holes earlier, so that's why I said Stanley. Stanton. But there was like some disagreements about finances, as always. And so Leonardo DiCaprio dropped out and they got Bradley Cooper, which I think was for the better. I don't know how I would feel about, I love Leonardo DiCaprio, but I don't know how I'd feel about him playing Stanton Carlisle.
Yeah, I like Bradley Cooper in this role, in this film.
Last fun fact, this is the first Guillermo del Toro movie without any supernatural elements.
Except for that baby.
The baby, well, it wasn't supernatural. It was just mutant.
That's true. He wasn't from another planet. Yeah. He was just It
was just like a mutant baby.
It was a very large baby, too. And also, Willem Dafoe's character, Clem, does, he explains that. He says it is a larger child. It's a very interesting looking child.
But yeah, honestly, first movie, no supernatural elements.
So, yeah, very interesting to think. Guillermo del Toro is very renowned for using supernatural elements in his films.
That's like his thing.
Yeah, that is really, I would say it's pretty much like a trope for his movies. So very interesting to see that he's not using anything like that. But I got to get into what other people are thinking about this movie other than you and I. Just for a hot second here, I got to say, looking at the reviews for Nightmare Alley from Rotten Tomatoes, they currently list this at 79% critics, 68% from the audience. Very curious to see why those ratings are like that. Laura, what do you think with those kind of ratings? It's not bad. It's not crazy high.
I mean,
but it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think the movie has very slow pacing, which we've talked about before with other movies, and that detracts audience score, I think. You know, audiences love just like bing, bing, boom. We're there. And this definitely is like a slow burn. And there's some very slow pacing at times. And it's a long movie. It's like 2.5 hours. So there are times, I would say, even when I was watching it, I was like, all right, we could move along to the next thing now. So that probably, I would say, is like my main assumption of why the audience score is a little lower.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. And if you are a prior fan of Guillermo Del Toro's work, I can see where you'd find some enjoyment in watching this. I don't know where the negative context would come in some of these reviews, but, you know, something to dig into. And I think also from other review sites, I saw that the writer for the Roger Ebert review gave it a 4 out of 4.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and Martin Scorsese wrote like an open essay to the LA Times, like praising it and just pretty much saying, go watch it. Like if Scorsese does that for your movie, that's a pretty good review.
And as we mentioned much earlier in our episode, if these aren't enough for the reviews, this film is also up for Best Picture at the Oscars this year. Yeah,
and costume, production design, and cinematography, I think.
Yep.
So we'll see. I wouldn't be, you and I talked about this. I think it could possibly get production design. Though I think Tragedy of Macbeth also has a pretty good shot at that.
Yeah.
But definitely costume.
Well, same with cinematography, too. I mean.
Yeah, him and Macbeth. But costumes, I think this movie could do pretty well. We'll see. I was just looking at one of the like bad reviews to kind of get an idea of why it is maybe getting lower. And most people are saying it is because of like the slow pace. So there, Kevin Maher of the Times gave the movie only 2 out of 5 stars, saying that they're like praising the set design, but saying that there's, quote, there's little else in this drastically overstretched narrative to hold any attention beyond a cursory awareness that, yes, we're watching an oddly literal melodrama about bad people doing very bad things very slowly. So
to each their own.
Yeah. So I'd say that's probably the general consensus that gives people the lower reviews.
Well, Laura, I would say it's time for us to put in our 2 cents for the slurps up or slurps down section of our show. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, slurps up or slurps down means slurps up. We recommend this movie. We highly suggest that you check it out. We want you to go watch it, and we think that it is a good film. And slurps down means we do not want you to go see this movie. We do not think that it is good, and we think that you should leave this movie in the trash. Laura, slurps up or slurps down?
Slurps up for me. I was going to say no surprise, but I guess it's not really no surprise. Definitely slurps up. This movie had everything I love in movies. I love like the odd, oddity and the creepy. I love neo-noir. I love, dark, seedy kind of things. Not in real life, just while I'm watching movies. So, when we were debating what movies to watch, like that's intrinsically what drew me to this. I just knew I would like it, and it didn't disappoint. Like I got all that I wanted from it. And it is, like I said, I get it is a little slow at times. I get it, but overall, like visually, it's great. Production design was amazing. The casting is great, and I think the plot, it does move along. I think it does. It's just there's multiple plots happening. If you think of it in that way, and it's like a mini series in a sense, right? All pieced together, then, that doesn't bore me. I like that. I like that there's like an intricate plot going on and it's not just one story. So yeah, slurps up for me.
Laura, you are a classic murderino, and of course you're going to love something like this, even though not that many people get murdered in the movie, but they still get murdered.
There's a few.
Let me say on my end, I am definitely going to give this movie a slurps up, and I will tell you why. It's because Guillermo Del Toro is a wonderful director. He's a wonderful screenwriter, and this movie will not let you down in that regard. If you haven't checked out any of Guillermo del Toro's other movies, let me start by saying do that, do your homework, watch his movies, but definitely put this one on your checklist of things to do, because this movie looks beautiful in terms of production design. The acting is wonderful. As Laura and I had mentioned before, it has got a wonderful cast of very talented actors. And to see Bradley Cooper in this role, it is a real mind bender. And it's just interesting to see the way that he's playing this character, whether or not some people think it's slow moving. You know, that's up to them. That's up to those people writing those reviews. But I think it was a very enjoyable pace. And I think it was interesting to see how his character developed throughout this movie with the other characters he interacted with. And I think it was wonderful to see how it started off with him as sort of this student learning about how to become a mentalist, how to get these traits of a entertainer at this carnival, and then really try and twist it for his own benefit, and make money as a con artist, and then really see the downfall of all that in the end. You know, it's so interesting to see the ups and downs in a film such as this one. That is truly what makes a contemporary neo-noir film, as Guillermo del Toro has made this. And I can't say it, any greater than that right now.
That was a really good review, Adam.
Without just explaining the entire film. I'm not gonna start shelling the whole plot out. So slurps up, check it out.
Woo.
With that being said, that wraps it up for this episode of Screen Slurps. Be sure to follow us on social media at Screen Slurps on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Ghana, or just about any other podcast streaming service out there. And if you enjoy what you hear, slide on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. It will help us a lot. Mm-hmm. And if there's any crazy movies you want to hear about, let us know. Leave a comment on one of our social media pages, and trust me when I say we will be sure to talk about it. So, closing out, I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Herlocker.
Slurps up, and we will catch you later.